Quentin Tarantino worships the Grindhouse altar, claiming exploitation pictures rewired film grammar long before multiplexes noticed. From savage girl gang showdowns to technicolor witchcraft, these 15 renegade reels taught him to slice narrative fat, pump raw style, and let audacity roar. Number 3 vanished behind censorship alarms. The rest swaggered through midnight cinemas, lighting the fuse that scorches his own filmography.
Enter the Dragon erupts with Bruce Lee's key, never lets the echo fade. Tarantino says it changed cinema because it fused Eastern fight grammar with Western spectacle, then hurled that new language around the globe until every playground became a dojo. Lee, joined by John Saxon's gambler swagger and Jim Kelly's cool fists, turns a Spy Island tournament into a manifesto of physical storytelling, showing Tarantino charisma can punch through any language barrier. He praises Robert Klaus's Mirror Room climax for forging a visual metaphor so primal it needs no subtitles, inspiring his own reflective mayhem in Kill Bill's House of Blue Leaves. Each whip-crack nunchaku twirl is a lesson in editing rhythm, each drum beat a reminder that sound design can speak when words would slow the charge. Half a century later, filmmakers still chase Bruce Lee's blur, and Tarantino argues they should, because that streak of motion is where style meets soul and cinema lands its hardest kick.
Dario Argento's Suspiria opens with a stained glass impalement and never returns to daylight, an ultra-chromatic nightmare Tarantino calls cinema breathing fire through color. He screens it for young directors as proof that story can surrender to sensation if craftsmanship is fearless, confessing the remake even moved him to tears because it reminded him how potent the original still feels. Jessica Harper glides through a witch-run ballet academy where maggots reign and razor-wire tangos transform fear into dark ballet. Tarantino says the scene choreographs dread the way Busby Berkeley staged joy. He cites Goblin's pounding score and Argento's roving camera as lessons in letting rhythm replace exposition, later echoed in Inglourious Basterds' tavern suspense. The finale, lightning-splashing scarlet corridors, convinced him horror and art house can share one heartbeat. Viewers stumble out, dazzled and disoriented, and Tarantino insists any film that leaves audiences lost yet elated has just widened cinema's pulse.
Tarantino crowns Tobe Hooper's low-budget terror at number 1 on his personal Grindhouse Classics list, calling its feral energy the moment independent movies stopped asking permission. He argues the film's sweat-slick realism turned horror from haunted parlors into slaughterhouse reportage, inspiring his own taste for tactile violence. The story is skeletal yet surgical. 5 road-tripping friends pick the wrong farmhouse and confront Leatherface, a mute human cleaver swung by Gunnar Hansen. Hooper shoots in sunburnt daylight so nothing can hide, an influence Tarantino cites whenever lighting a daylight massacre. Marilyn Burns runs, screams, and survives by inches, proving to Tarantino that Final Girls could be frantic rather than poised. When the saw whirs over a blood-red sunset, cinema itself feels permanently scarred, exactly the mark Tarantino says every director should chase.
A blood-red snowfall drifts over Meiko Kaji's Avenging Blade, and Tarantino admits this Japanese tale provided the skeleton for Kill Bill's chapter structure and signature song. Yuki, born for revenge, slices through Meiji-era corruption with operatic elegance. Crimson sprays streak across white kimonos like calligraphy. Criterion historians note Tarantino's use of the original theme, Shura no Hana, over Oren Ishii's entrance, a musical homage that cements the film's influence. Wired's profile of his borrowings calls the picture ground zero for Tarantino's pop samurai mythmaking. He prizes how director Toshiya Fujita weds beauty and brutality. Each freeze-frame panel feels ripped from manga, yet every duel throbs with mortal consequence. For Tarantino, that paradox changed cinema by proving style can heighten, never blunt, emotional stakes.
Shihigo Iroizawa's Osaka-forged Whirlwind introduced Sonny Chiba's Takuma Tsurugi, a mercenary whose throat-ripping hand strike earned the first U.S. X rating for violence alone. Tarantino tells podcast listeners this was the moment martial arts cinema took off its gloves and punched through the screen, citing Chiba's feral growl as a blueprint for Kill Bill's blood-spraying duels. The plot races like a bullet train, triads, oil barons, and rooftop freefalls, all propelled by grinding guitar riffs.
Tarantino reveres the bone fracture X-ray shots, saying they birthed the giddy anatomical excess that modern genre fans cheer. He applauds Etsuko Shiomi's steel-nerved sidekick, noting the film plants seeds for female fighters who slice patriarchy alongside cartilage. Every time Chiba smashes a gangster through sliding doors, Tarantino argues cinema's fourth wall cracks wider, inviting audiences to taste adrenaline rather than simply watch it. By curtain call, violence feels mythic, and Tarantino considers that alchemy the film's greatest gift to the future of action storytelling.
John Flynn's revenge saga opens with Major Charles Raines stepping off a Texas tarmac. A returning POW gifted a suitcase of silver dollars and a nation's indifference. Tarantino told audiences the picture rewired his brain by proving that stillness can be more violent than gunshots. William Devane's marble-veined calm, even after a thug's grind his hand in a garbage disposal, taught Tarantino that minimalist acting can detonate bigger than explosions. The film's Alamo Motel showdown unlocked his love of stagey kill rooms, later echoed in Jackie Brown's department store Triple Cross. Raines' hook prosthetic, gleaming under neon, reminded Tarantino that props can become character extensions as iconic as dialogue. Most of all, the story's moral vacuum, heroes who accept damnation so revenge survives, became a template for anti-heroes who bleed nobility through gritted teeth. Tarantino claims every time Devane loads that hidden shotgun shell, cinema gets a shade darker and storytellers gain permission to step further over the line.
Jack Hill's bullet whistle revenge tale fires Blaxploitation into the mainstream, and Tarantino calls Hill the Howard Hawks of exploitation, naming Coffy his personal favorite of the director's work. Pam Grier storms the screen as nurse-turned-vigilante Coffy, wielding a shotgun and razor-filled afro against dealers poisoning her community. Tarantino admires how Grier's charisma detonates across the frame, proving that genre heroes can be fierce, funny, and proudly female all at once. The film's jagged editing and funk soundtrack taught Tarantino rhythmic pacing. Its hospital corridor kill directly echoes in his own Samurai Steep showdowns. Robert Doquy and Booker Bradshaw bring slick menace. But it is Grier's fearless glare that rewrites the rules, a lesson Tarantino applies whenever elevating unsung icons to center stage. Coffy ends with a slow walk into dawn, barrel still smoking, and Tarantino insists that stride changed cinema by showing vengeance could strut in high-heeled boots.
Lucio Fulci drags viewers through a swampy Louisiana hotel that sits on hell's front porch, and Tarantino has long saluted the Italian maestro's nightmare logic. Fulci's melting faces and tarantula slow crawl left him convinced horror should feel hallucinatory, not orderly, an ethos he channels whenever blood geysers without warning. In interviews for Eli Roth's History of Horror, he praises the 1981's epic's dreamlike editing, where scenes snap from sepia flashbacks to neon gore with no apology. Catriona MacCall's wide-eyed heroine and David Warbeck's doomed doctor anchor the madness, but Fulci's rotting New Orleans set pieces are the true stars. Tarantino argues the film teaches you to break rules so the audience loses their map, a lesson he later etched into Death Proof's missing reels and Django's gunshot eruptions.
Kinji Fukasaku's Battle Royale straps explosive collars onto 42 ninth graders and asks the blasphemous question, what if Lord of the Flies packed Uzis? Quentin Tarantino calls it the movie I wish I'd directed, reserving that praise for works that shove art and taste over the edge at once. In a Sky Movies list, he ranked it his favorite of the last 20 years because its carnage never hides its politics. Adults weaponize fear, teenagers answer with bullets. Tatsuya Fujiwara and Aki Maeda lead a cast that sells horror as heartbreak, teaching Tarantino that character depth makes gore sting sharper. He credits Fukasaku's handheld chaos, comic book chapter cards, and deadpan black humor as tools he later echoed in Kill Bill and The Hateful Eight. Even the whispered roll call scene where names are erased one by one inspired Tarantino's love of on-screen scorekeeping. When the credits roll and the sea crashes against that lonely lighthouse, he says cinema just dared us to stare humanity straight in the throat.
The mighty Peking man surges out of the Shaw Brothers jungle like a pop art thunderclap, and Quentin Tarantino made sure modern audiences felt the quake when he folded it into his Rolling Thunder Pictures triple feature. He told interviewers the movie proves that a film can be 10 minutes of King Kong and 80 minutes of sheer WTF imagination. The exact midnight jolt he wants every Grindhouse crowd to rediscover. Director Han Man-wha unleashes a skyscraper-sized ape, a leopard-skin heroine, and Hong Kong aflame. Yet Tarantino loves that the real spectacle is reckless enthusiasm. Money is flimsy when vision is huge. Danny Lee's Daredevil Hunter and Evelyn Craft's Wild Jungle Goddess chase the beast from Himalayan cliffs to Neon Harbor, trading comic book emotions Tarantino calls honest as a kid's gasp. When the ape clings to a burning tower and swats at helicopters, he says cinema remembers why we buy popcorn, to cheer the impossible before it crashes to earth.
Motown crime pulses through every horn blast of Arthur Mark's Thriller, and Quentin Tarantino personally hauled it out of obscurity because he said this movie moves like a bullet and stings like betrayal. Detectives Danny Bassett and Jesse Williams chase masked gunmen who rob a gubernatorial fundraiser, and the city's racial fault lines crack with each foot chase. When Tarantino's Rolling Thunder Pictures reissued the film in 1998, he praised Marx's whip pan camera and profanity-laced banter as proof exploitation could dissect American politics better than any prestige drama. The muscular funk score, neon alleyways, and double-cross climax taught him that urgency, not budget, electrifies audiences. The result became a video store cult favorite, and Tarantino insists its raw energy still schools modern filmmakers on how to mix social commentary with sweat-slick suspense.
Zheng Changhua's Hong Kong Fist Storm hit U.S. grindhouses months before Enter the Dragon, and according to Tarantino, flipped the switch on America's kung fu craze. Traveling warrior Chow Chi-hao masters the iron palm, his hands glowing red before shattering bone, a visual Tarantino mimicked with the bride and Pei Mei's training gags in Kill Bill. Screening stunned 1973 audiences by mixing Shaw Brothers' color bursts with balletic savagery, and the director's sudden zooms became a rhythm Tarantino still calls grindhouse punctuation. Screen Rant notes the xylophonic fight cues and crunch-cut edits as direct DNA in his later swordplay. Today, the film stands as living proof that choreography can double as storytelling. Each cracked rib, another exclamation point.
Quentin Tarantino first screened Jack Hill's Girl Gang Explosion when he was a video store clerk, then spent years hunting a pristine print because, he said, no film combines pop art, comic panels, and raw street energy like this one. Lace leads the Dagger Debs through locker room turf wars, back alley knife ballets, and a commandeered tank that rolls right over misogynist authority. Robbie Lee's rasping snarl and Joanne Nail's righteous fury taught Tarantino that exploitation heroines could carry Shakespearean stakes without losing graffiti swagger. The film's grindhouse zooms and crunch-cut fights inspired his own quick-draw editing in Death Proof, while the climactic rooftop duel showed him that tragedy can wear ripped denim and glitter barrettes. When Tarantino re-released the movie under his Rolling Thunder Pictures banner, he called it a drive-in fellow with switchblades for soliloquies, challenging new directors to color outside prestige lines while shouting their convictions through a bullhorn of funk guitars and screaming sirens. George A. Romero trades Night's Graveyard mold for mall neon, and Tarantino hails the sequel as capitalist carnage captured on celluloid, replaying the movie on his Video Archives podcast to dissect its satire beat by beat. He loves how Romero's roaming camera smears consumer greed across shambling flesh, teaching future auteurs that social commentary can gush bright arterial spray. 4 survivors, Ken Foree, Galen Ross, Scott Reiniger, and David MG, declare an abandoned mall paradise until commerce-era zombies overrun the gates. Tarantino praises the mix of everyday banter and Tom Savini gore, noting the contrast heightens dread the way laughter sets up a punchline. The helicopter scalp, the pie fight, the biker disembowelment, each becomes a film school lecture in timing for Tarantino. By curtain call, the parking lot is crimson, and the audience has learned monsters can be mirrors, one of Tarantino's favorite cinematic tricks. Christina Lindberg's eye patch saga was so savage, Swedish censors hacked it to ribbons, and Britain branded it a video nasty. Yet Tarantino cherishes every uncut frame and plants it defiantly in third place, murmuring, "Banned but essential." The tale is raw revenge minimalism. A mute farm girl, enslaved and blinded in one eye, trains with silent martial mentors, buys a sawed-off shotgun, then repays cruelty in operatic slow motion. Tarantino lifted the red leather coat, the eye patch, and those grinding zooms straight into L.A. Driver's hospital march, calling the film pure exploitation poetry. Lindbergh's silent stare and Heinz Hopp's reptilian pimp give the violence tragic weight, proving outrage must be felt, not merely shown. Every splintered bone appears at 1,000 frames per second. Tarantino says those frame rate shocks taught him form can scream louder than dialogue when a heroine finally pulls the trigger of her own destiny.
15 Grindhouse icons later, your pulse hammers like Sonny Chiba's Iron Palm. Subscribe, share the adrenaline, and name the outlaw reel you'd unleash at midnight, because cinema changed, and keeping the flame alive now belongs to you, forever pushing boundaries forward.